Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zhang, and today we'll be going over the math homework for Class P, and this is for session U5. All right, for question number one, it says a 10-gallon bucket is losing 2 gallons of water every 10 minutes. How many minutes will the bucket be completely empty? So we have this rate, 2 gallons of water every 10 minutes. And we know that this bucket can hold 10 gallons. So we can use unit rates here to determine how long it will take for this bucket to be completely empty. So if you line up the units, you know that from 2 to 10, you would have to multiply by 5. So on the other side, in terms of time, you have to multiply by 5 as well. So you multiply the capacity by 5, as well as the time by 5 to keep everything proportional. And then when you do 10 times 5, you get 50 minutes. So after choice D, 50 minutes, this 10-gallon bucket with 10 gallons of water will be completely empty. You can also set up a proportion as well to help you solve the question. Okay, next for question number 2, if the figure above is a square, what is the value of x plus 1? So we know that for a square, all sides are equal. So I'm going to mark it up with these 2 dashed lines. These 2 dashed lines means that they're equal. So we know that x minus 2 is going to be equal to 3. So here you can just solve for this equation by adding 2 to both sides. And that will give you x is equal to 5. That's not the final answer though. We actually want x plus 1. So x plus 1 has to be equal to choice D, 6. All right, next for number 3, if 2D plus 3 is equal to 4, what's the value of 12D plus 18? So here, we can actually solve for D, because it's one equation and one variable. You can subtract 3 and then divide by 2, but then you wouldn't have to multiply by 12 and add 18 again, because we don't want to solve for D. We actually want to solve for 12D plus 18, and the way this problem is set up, if you notice that the coefficient 2 to 12, you have to multiply by 6. And so you do the same thing for that 3. So this 3 times 6 is also equal to 18. So that means that you can actually just take the original equation, multiply by 6. And what do you do to one side? You have to do to the other side. So on the right side, you also multiply by 6. So 4 times 6 will be 24. So you know that 12D plus 18 is equal to 24. You don't have to solve for D at all. So that's the shortcut here. All right, next for question number 4, in the figure above, line L is represented by the equation x is equal to 3. All of the following points lie on line L except, so here you have a vertical line at x equals 3. That means that every single point on this line has an x value of 3. So this would be 3 comma 1, this would be 3 comma 2, 3 comma 3, and so on and so forth, or 3 comma negative 1. If you look at choice B is the only one that has a 4 on the for the x. So it would actually be over here, 4 comma 3. That's not on that line. All right, next for number 5, if 10a plus 150 is equal to b, what is the value of a plus 15? So here you have this equation with 2 variables, a and b, and you want to get a by itself and add 15 to it. So the first thing is to isolate a, and to isolate a, you're going to have to use inverse operations to do that. So the first step would be to subtract 150 from both sides. And that will give you 10a is equal to b minus 150. And then the next step would be to divide by 10. And when you do that, you will get a is equal to b minus 150 over 10. Or you can also split this up to 2 separate fractions because there is a common denominator of 10. So if you do that, the zeros will cancel out, and that will actually give you a is b over 10 minus 15. And now you just want to do 8 plus 15. So you would add 15 on both sides. And of course, if you minus 15 and then add 15, those constants cancel out. And you just get a plus 15 is equal to b over 10, which is choice E. The other way to do this is I can just substitute in a random number for a and b and then just solve. All right, next for question number 6, if g and h are integers, for which of the following values is g plus h equal to 10 and g divided by h less than or equal to 1? So they're integers, which means that they're whole numbers. And you want to know which one has g plus h equal to 0. So that means that they're additive inverses. So for example, in choice A, g plus h is not 0, because 0 and negative 1 aren't opposites. For choice B, they're both negative, so they're not additive inverses. For choice C, they are 3 and negative 3. These are additive inverses. They'll add together and they'll cancel out. For choice D, they're both negative, so that's wrong. And for choice E, 0 and negative 1 are not additive inverses. So the answer has to be choice C. Now we can always double check with the second requirement. G divided by h, would it be less than or equal to negative 1? And if you substitute in, that will be 3 divided by negative 3. You want to see if that's less than or equal to negative 1. Well, 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. And negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 1 because we have that strong inequality. So everything does check out. The answer is C. All right, next for number 7, from the set of odd integers between negative 6 and 16, how many pairs of distinct numbers have a sum of 23 or more? So you only want odd whole numbers. So you can list them all out because there really aren't that many. You have 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15, and that's it. So you want to see if you can add them up to make a sum of 23 or more. And you want to pair them up this way. So let's start with the smallest ones. If you start with 7, 7 plus 15 would be 22. So that means that 7, you don't have any. There's no way you can combine 7 with any of the numbers to get a sum of 23. So you do the same thing for 9. Well, 9 plus 13 is 22, but 9 plus 15 is 24, which is greater than 23. So you can put that off to the side. And then you'll kind of just see a pattern for 11. You can have 11 and 13, but also 11 and 15. 11 and 13 is 24. 11 and 15 is 26. And finally, you have 13 and 15. Because you already have 13 and 11, so you don't want to double count that. And 13 and 15 is the largest. It is 28. So there are choice D, 4 pairs. All right, so again, the trick here is distinct. Distinct means different, so you can't repeat pairs. All right, and here's the summary for this first page. All right, for question number 8, if the sum of A and B is C, what is the average arithmetic mean of A and B in terms of A, B, and C? All right, so what you want to figure out is the average, and remember, average is the total divided by the number of data. So in this case, you want the average of A and B, which is going to be A plus B divided by 2. But instead of A and B, you also want to throw in C in there. Now here, you know that the sum of A and B is C, so you know that A plus B is going to be C. So therefore, you can just replace, instead of A plus B in the numerator, it'll just be C divided by 2. That's going to be choice C. The other way to do this is to just substitute in 2 numbers. So for example, you can make A equal to 2 and B is equal to 4. So C is going to be equal to the sum, which is 6. And the average of 2 and 4 is 2 plus 4 divided by 2, which is 6 over 2, which is 3. So go through all the choices, see which one is equal to 3. And choice C should be the only one that's equal to 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. also forgot to mention, if you do this method where you do guess and check, you have to keep substituting in and eliminate choices. If there are two choices that just happen to be the same answer, then you have to double check and substitute in a new set of numbers. So just be wary of that. All right, next for number 9, Stephanie, Damon, and Carissa have been contracted to paint an office building that contains 72 rooms. If Stephanie paints half as many rooms as Carissa and 12 more than Damon, how many rooms does Carissa paint? So S plus D plus K, the total has to be 72. But Stephanie paints half as many as Carissa, so S is equal to half of K. But Stephanie paints 12 more than Damon, so S is equal to D plus 12. So from here, you can actually substitute in. Remember, our goal is to figure out Carissa, so you want to put everything in terms of K. Well, S is 1/2 of K, so you just do a substitution here. Instead of S, you have 1/2 of K. And now you just have to replace D with K. So you can replace 1/2 of K in here. Do another substitution. So instead of S is equal to D plus 12, it's going to turn into half of K is equal to D plus 12. And you can subtract 12 from both sides to isolate D. And you get that D is equal to 1/2 of K minus 12. So this, you substitute in here. So instead of S, you have half of K. Instead of D, you have half of K minus 12. And then K just K. And that's equal to 72. Now you got to combine like terms here. So here, half of K and half of K are like terms. They combine to form just K. And K plus K minus this 12 is equal to 72. You can add 12 to both sides. And K plus K is 2K, so you get 2K is equal to 84. If you divide by 2, that K is equal to 42. And that's choice D. Now we should always double check here, especially when we have a system of equations. If K is equal to 42, you know that S is equal to half of K, which is going to be 1/2 of 42, which is equal to 21. And then S is equal to D plus 12. So you can also rewrite this as D is equal to S minus 12. So that's going to be 21 minus 12, which is equal to 9. And if you add 42 plus 21 plus 9, that should give you 72. And that's exactly what you get. So you know that everything is correct. So here, to solve the system of equations, you have 3 equations and 3 variables. So the variables the equations are S plus D plus K is 72, S equals 1/2 of K, and S is equal to D plus 12. So with 3 equations, 3 variables, you can solve for each one. I use a substitution method a couple times because all the variables were already isolated, so it wasn't too bad. But you can also solve this via elimination if you want. All right, for number 10, Heinrich uses his computer to produce abstract coordinate art, which is based on the following specifications. Ordered pairs, x, y are plugged into the computer to produce the art. Next, then y must be positive. The number of suns within the artwork is the sum of all the x values, and the number of lightning bolts within the artwork is the sum of all the y values. Which of the following pieces of abstract art would be represented when Heinrich plugs in the coordinate sets 1, 2, and 3, 3 into his computer to be produced on a single piece of art? So he puts in these 2 inputs, and x and y are positive integers, which they are. Now the number of suns must be the sum of all the x values. So the x's are 1 and 3. So 1 plus 3 is equal to 4, so there should be 4 suns. And now for lightning bolts, that's the sum of all the y values. So that's going to be 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3 is equal to 5, so there should be 5 lightning. So just go through all the choices and see which one has 4 suns and 5 lightning bolts. And we see that choice B has 4 suns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lightning bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, and here's a summary for this page. For number 11, let f of x be defined for any positive integer x greater than 2 as the sum of all the prime numbers less than x. For example, f of 4 is equal to 2 plus 3, which is equal to 5. And f of 8 is equal to 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7, which is equal to 17. What is the value of f of 81 minus f of 78? So here, this is a function. And a function is just an input-output machine. And just kind of follow the rule. The rule here is you have to add all the prime numbers less than x. So for 81, or if you substitute in 81 into the function f, you're going to have to start adding. So 81 is not prime, 80 is not prime, but 79 is prime. Then 78 isn't prime, 77 isn't prime. You just keep going down. 76, 75 is not prime either. 74, and then you have 73. Then et cetera, et cetera. Now you also have to subtract f of 78. So the smallest prime number less than 78 is going to be 73. And then everything after that, you notice that it's going to be the same. So because everything's the same, everything after 73 will cancel out. And when we subtract, the only thing left is going to be 79. That's choice E. All right, next for number 12, if ABCD shown above is a parallelogram and AD is equal to line segment CD, then which of the following must be true? Again, figures not drawn on a scale. All you know that it's a parallelogram, and for parallelograms, you know that opposite sides are equal and opposite angles are equal as well. So for here, the AD is equal to CD. But you know that AD is also equal to BC because opposite sides are equal. And CD is also equal to AB, but since it's also equal to AD, that means that all 4 sides are equal. This is essentially a rhombus. And for a rhombus, the diagonals are perpendicular. So that Roman number 1 has to be true. So we can eliminate choice B and choice D because they don't have 1 in it. And we can eliminate none because it has to be 1. All right, now for Roman numeral number 2, the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B. So here, that can't be true. All right, because when you have a rhombus, one of the angles is going to be obtuse. The other one's going to be acute. The only rhombus in which they're actually equal, A is equal to B, is a square. And we don't know if angle A is equal to 90 degrees. We don't know if this is a square. Squares are a special type of rhombus in which all the sides are equal and all the angles are equal, but we don't know that. So true doesn't have to be true, so we can eliminate choice C, which leaves choice A. X and Y, again, we don't know the angles either. They would be equal for squares only. So for number 12, you have to just go through the process of elimination after determining that this is a rhombus. All right, next for number 13, for x is greater than 0, what is 7x over 2 divided by 1 over 4x? So here, when you're dividing by 2 different fractions, you have to do keep, change, flip. So that's going to give you 7x over 2 times 4x over 1. Also use that symbol for 4x. So 7x times 4x is 28x squared, and you divide that by 2. Now 28 and the 2 cross cancels to form 14 and 1. So your final answer is going to be 14x squared, which is choice D. All right, next for number 14. JK, or line segment JK shown above, is 28.25 inches long. If point L is on JK such that JL is equal to 2x and LK is equal to x squared plus 1, what is the value of x? So here, if you add these two pieces up, you have x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to 20.25. Now, x squared plus 2x plus 1 is actually one of your factoring patterns. You want to look for factors of 1 to add or subtract to positive 2. So that's just x plus 1 times x plus 1. You can always double check by foiling. If you check this, the first outer will be x squared plus x, and then the inner last is also x plus 1. So this turns into x squared plus 2x plus 1, which is what we had. So here, what you're going to want to do first is to do the square root, because this is x plus 1 squared is equal to 20.25. So if you do the square root on both sides, that will actually cancel out the exponent, and that will just give you x plus 1. And 2025 is actually 4.5 squared, because 45 squared is 2025. So that for that one, you would just have to guess and check. And yeah, you can tell that 50 squared is equal to 2500. 40 squared is 1600. So it's going to be somewhere between 40 and 50. And 2000 is kind of halfway, so we tried 45 squared, which is exactly 2025. Here you do have a decimal, so you just have to move the decimal over. Sorry, there shouldn't be a square there. All right, and then you would have to subtract 1 on both sides. You get that x is equal to 3.5, which is choice D. All right, next for number 15, if q is equal to 1 over s and qs is not equal to 0, what's the result of 1 plus q divided by 1 plus s? So here, you know that q is equal to 1 over s. So here you can actually just substitute in and replace q with 1 over s. So the numerator becomes 1 plus 1 over s. The denominator is still 1 plus s. Now for the numerator, because it's 1 plus 1 over s, the LCD is s. So that's going to be s over s plus 1 over s, which is s plus 1 over s. And then you're dividing by 1 plus s. So you can rewrite this using the division symbol, because the fraction part is divide. This is s plus 1 over s divided by 1 plus s. And here you can flip. So you keep s plus 1, the numerator, divided by s. You change the divide into multiply. And then you flip 1 plus s. Now 1 plus s has 1 in the denominator, so when you flip that, it'll be 1 over 1 plus s. And notice that 1 plus s will cancel out with s plus 1, so you just get 1 over s. I don't see that as any of the choices, but I do know that 1 plus s is equal to q. So choice E, q, is the answer, because q is equal to 1 over s as defined by the problem. So here, just about doing keep, change, flip once you rewrite the complex fraction. All right, next for number 16. Here, a box with the volume of V has n compartments, each of which has the same volume. If x of the n compartments are filled with sand, and assuming all the space in a box is given to the n compartment, which of the following describes, or which of the following gives a volume of the sand? So a box has a volume of V, and has n compartments. So V divided by N will be equal to the volume of each compartment. You have the total, so you want to divide to get the individual volume. Now, X of the compartments have sand. So if you have N compartments, X of them, sand, that means that N minus X of them, no sand. So what you really want to do is to figure out, well, all the space is filled with sand. To figure out the volume of the sand, you would take the number of components with sand, X of them, and multiply by the volume of each of these compartments. So you know that X of the components have sand, and each compartment is V over N in terms of volume. And you multiply them, you get XV over N. That's the total volume of the sandy compartment, and that's choice A. You can also substitute in random numbers here and plug in and just figure out which one is equal to the answer. All right, next we're number 17. In a list of 4 positive even numbers, the mean, median, and mode are all equal. Which of the following cannot be done to the list if the mean, median, and mode are to remain equal? All right, so you have 4 numbers here, and they're all even, and the mean is equal to the median, is equal to the mode. So one thing to make everything easy is to pretty much make everything the same. For example, 2, 2, 2, 2. Here, the most popular number, 2, is equal to the average, which is 2. It's also equal to the median, which is 2. Now, if you do something, which of the following cannot be done because you want to make everything 2? Well, can you add a number to the list? Well, yes, if you add another 2, everything will stay the same, so you eliminate that. For choice B, you want to add one number to the list that's greater than the mean. So if you put in the number 3, for example, it's going to change everything. Okay, the average won't be 2 anymore, it will be greater than 2. So we can't do that, but just go through all the choices just to be sure. For choice C, if you add 2 distinct numbers to the list, so if you add 2 different numbers, I want to see if you can make this average equal. Well, if you add one number that's bigger, like 3, and a number that's smaller, these 2 numbers still have a sum of 4, and because one's bigger, one's smaller, it doesn't affect the mean, median, or the mode. So choice C is wrong. Add 2 to each number in the list. Well, that will actually make the mean, median, and mode equal, because then that would just be 4, 4, 4, 4. The average is now 4, but so is the mean and the median and the mode. So that's wrong. And for choice E, if you remove the first and last terms, you have just 2 numbers of 2, and that's, of course, still the mean, median, and mode are still equal. So the answer is choice B. If you add a number that's greater than the mean, then that's going to increase the average, no matter what you do. All right, here's the summary for this page. All right, next for number 18, if x is equal to x squared minus y squared divided by x plus y, and the square of x minus the square of y is equal to 48, what is the value of 2x plus 2y when x minus y is equal to 3? So here, you know that x is equal to x squared minus y squared divided by x plus y plus y. Well, you can actually simplify this because the numerator is a difference of 2 squares, and that's a factoring pattern. It simplifies to x plus y times x minus y. So then x turns into x plus y, x minus y, divided by x plus y, and here x plus y will cancel out, and you just have x is equal to x. So this equation is actually not useful. It just tells you that x is equal to x. So you actually don't need to use this one. This equation is just there to throw you off. Now the next part is that x squared minus the square of y. So x squared minus y squared is equal to 48. And you want to know what's the value of 2x plus 2y when x minus y is equal to 3. Well, here, this is the useful equation. If you factor this, you know that x minus y is equal to 3. To them, the x plus y has to be 16, because 16 times 3 is equal to 48. Well, if x plus y is equal to 16, 2x plus 2y is really just 2 times x plus y in parentheses, which is equal to 2x plus 2y. That's going to be equal to 2 times 16, or 32. So the answer is choice D. Again, that first part, don't get thrown off. That first part's actually totally useless, so you actually didn't need this piece at all. That equation just tells you that x is equal to x, which you obviously know. So for question number 19, the above circle with center O is tangent to the x-axis and the y-axis. The circle has a radius of 1 and is tangent to AB at point T. Line AB has a slope of -1. What are the coordinates of T? All right, so here the key word in this problem is tangent. And tangent means that it's touching at exactly one point. And this is important because if you have a circle that's tangent to a line, it actually always forms a right angle at that point of tangency. And we can actually use that fact here. All right, so here, when you have this circle with a radius of 1 and it's tangent to the x-axis, the y-axis, and T, it actually forms 3 right angles to these 3 points of tangency. So basically everything here is really symmetric. And now, because the slope of line AB is equal to -1, remember that the negative reciprocal slopes will be perpendicular. So this point, the center to point T, will also will have a slope of +1. Remember, these have to be negative reciprocals. All right, so here at the center, because we know the radius is equal to 1, we know that the center is 1, 1. But now you don't want the distance from the center to T, you actually want the coordinates to point T. So that's going to have to include another right triangle. In this case, because everything is symmetric and here the radius is just 1, 1, and the slope is 1, you can actually draw a right triangle that connects the radius O to the point T, and this will actually be an isosceles right triangle because the slope is equal to 1, so that means that the x and the y has to be equal. The rise is equal to the run. And we know that the radius here has to be 1. So this is an isosceles right triangle, or a 45, 45, 90 right triangle, and this is one of our special right triangles. Here, the size and ratio of x, and x root 2, where that point T, I'm just going to redraw this, the distance between O and T is the radius of 1. So that means that x root 2 has to be equal to 1, and that's the equation that you can solve to solve for x. And to solve for x, you're going to have to divide by root 2 on both sides. So you know that x is equal to 1 over root 2, but that's actually not a rational number. Here you have to rationalize the denominator. And when you rationalize the denominator, you're really just multiplying. You're finding an equivalent fraction, essentially, and you have to multiply by the square root. So you're multiplying by root 2 over root 2, which is just 1. So you're not changing the value of the expression. This is equal to 1. So the numerator will be 1 times root 2, which is root 2, and the denominator is root 2 times root 2, which is root 2's the square roots cancel out, and you get 2. So 1 over root 2 can be rewritten as root 2 over 2. So here, this will be the distance between the corner to point T. And the same from the corner to the center. So that means that the coordinates of point T will be this 1 plus this root 2 over 2, comma, the y coordinate will be this 1 plus this root 2 over 2. And this corresponds with choice C. It's 1 plus root 2 over 2, comma, 1 plus root 2 over 2. So here the key was to use the definition of tangent and also an isosceles right triangle or 45, 45, 90 right triangle to figure out the sides of, or the sides of that right triangle that will then bring you point T. All right, next for number 20, what is the product of this 2 by 3 matrix and this 3 by 2 matrix? So this is something you'll do later on in high school, but when you multiply matrices, a matrix is just a bracket that consists of rows and columns of numbers. And to multiply them, in this case, a 2 by 3 matrix. Always want to do the rows first. And a 3 by 2 matrix. You basically have to just multiply and add. So that's the key here. Just multiply and add. It's kind of like one of those Excel spreadsheets where you just multiply and add the numbers. And a 2 by 3 crossed with 3 by 2, the middle two numbers actually cancels out, and the resulting matrix will be a 2 by 2. So you can't always multiply all matrices. You can only multiply them if the middle two numbers here are equal. They must be the same. And the reason they have to be the same is that we need to, you don't want to run out of numbers. So to multiply this matrix, what you do is you read this across 1, 3, and 5, and that combines with 2, 6, and 10. And you multiply and add. So the first number here is 1 and 2. So that's going to be 1 times 2. Then you add it to the next number, which is 3 by 6. It's going to be 3 times 6. And you add it to the last set, 5 and 10. 5 times 10. And this is going to be 2 plus 18 plus 50, which will give you 70. So the first number in this 2 by 2 matrix will be 70. Right, and then for the next set, you're going to have to do 1, 3, and 5. And now you move on to the next column, which is 4, 8, and 12. You have 1 times 4 plus 3 times 8, the middle numbers, plus now 5 and 12. That's going to be 4 plus 24 plus 60. That will be 88. So that's going to be this number on the top right here. Right, you can already see that the answer is going to be choice A, but let's just go through all of them just to double check. All right, Now you're done with the first row for 135, and now you start with the next row, 7, 9, and 11, and you go through the same process again. Again, just multiply and add. So you have 7 times 2 plus 9 times 6 plus 11 times 10. And that's going to be 14 plus 54 plus 110. That's 110 plus 68, or 178. That's going to be the number on the bottom left. And last but not least, you have 7, 9, 11 with last row 4, 8, and 12. So it's 7 times 4 plus 9 times 8 plus 11 times 12. So that's going to be 28 plus 72 plus 132. Right, that's going to be 13 and 232. And that is choice A. So when you are multiplying these matrices, you have to make sure that the row and the column has enough numbers for you to multiply it. So one useful way to figure that out is that the middle two numbers need to be the same when you multiply a matrix. Otherwise, you can't actually multiply the matrices. So the key, again, is to just multiply and add. Again, you'll see this later on in high school, so please don't worry too much about it. All right, and here's a summary for this page. Next, for question number 1, if y is equal to the absolute value of x plus 1, what is y when x is equal to negative 5? So you know that x is equal to negative 5, so you just substitute in. And remember the absolute value function. Here, the absolute value of x can be a couple things. So if x is greater than or equal to 0, absolute value of x just gives you x. So if it's positive or 0, it just gives you that number. The absolute value goes away, nothing happens. But if x is negative, then the absolute value of x, since x is a negative number, you have to negate it and multiply a negative number by negative 1. So when you negate a negative, it becomes positive, which is what happens in this case. The absolute value of negative 5 becomes positive 5, and then you just have to add 1 to it. And that's equal to choice E, 6. All right, next for question number 2, x and y represent digits in the correctly worked addition problem above. What digit does y represent? So here you know that 7 plus 0, of course, is 7. And you can't you can't carry here. So 2 plus the 6 has to be 8, because you can't carry anything. And if x is 6, 6 plus 3 has to be 9. So y has to be choice E, 9. Next, for number 3, Carlos paid $154 for 2 tickets to a concert. This price included a 25% handling fee for each ticket and a 2% transaction fee for the total sale. What was the price for a single ticket before the additional fees? So you want to work backwards here, but you got to be careful so we can come up with an equation. If you don't know the original price of the ticket, so we can just call that x. You want to buy 2 tickets, so that's going to be 2x. And now you include a 25% handling fee for each ticket. So here you can just take 25% of 2x. Now it's for each ticket, so you have to pay 25% of x plus another 25% of x, so you can just do 25% of 2x. You have to pay that for both. And a $2 transaction fee. And this is equal to $154. So to solve for this, first you kind of subtract 2. And then your total is 152. Now 25% of 2x, 25%, remember, is 1/4. Of means multiply. So when you do 1/4 times 2x, that's really just 2x over 4, or x over 2. So you're doing 2x plus x over 2 is equal to 152. And here the denominator, the LCD is 2, so you're going to have to multiply 2x by 2 over 2, which will give you 4x over 2, which is the same as 2x. And you add it to x over 2, which will turn into 5x over 2 is equal to 152. And now you have to multiply both sides by 2 to cancel out the denominator on the left, which will give you 5x is equal to 304. And then the last step, you have to divide by 5. So 304 divided by 5. And 5 goes, 0 times into 4. So you get a remainder of 4. And this is really 60 4/5 or $60.80, which is choice B. So here you have to turn the word sentence to a number sentence. Be careful, a percent increase, this 25% increase means you're adding 1/4 of the total price for the 2 tickets, which is 2x. And then add the $2 and just use inverse operations to solve. Right, next for number 4, what is the greatest power of 3? That is a positive integer divisor of 702. Right, so you want the power of 3. So you have 3 first, 3 squared, 3 cubed, etc. So here you want to see which one is the biggest one that's a power, the biggest one that's actually a divisor. So 3 squared is 9, 27, and this is 81. So 3 is a factor of 702. Remember the divisibility by 3, you have to add the digits. 7 plus 0 plus 2 is 9, and 9 is a multiple of 3. So I know that 3 is a multiple, or 3 is a factor. But the divisibility rule for 3 squared, the next number, is 9. And here, it's very similar to 3. 9 is also a multiple of 9. So 9 is also a factor of 702. Then you want to try the next one, 27. So this one, there is no divisibility rule for this. So you just kind of test it out. You can actually test it out by, actually the other way is to do the prime factorization. So we know that 9 does work. And we divide by 9. 702 divided by 9. And 9 goes into 72 8 times. Right, so here you have a factor of 2. So that's 36. That's our 39. And 39 is prime. Or actually, no, it's not. It's 3 and 13. Right, and the 13 is prime. So here you actually see 3 3s, which means that 27 is actually a factor. It's going to be 27 times 26 equals 702. And 81 doesn't show up because I don't have 4 3s here. So the answer is choice A. The easiest way is probably to do prime factorization. So 702 is 3 times 3 times 3 times 2 times 13, or 3 cubed times 26. All right, next one, number 5. Jane is building a gingerbread house. The front face of the door is formed by a square, and the right triangle is shown in the figure above. If the height of the square is 10 inches, then what is the combined length in inches of the 2 sides of the triangle labeled X? So here it's a right triangle, and the 2 sides are equal to X. So this is one of your special right triangles, or an isosceles right triangle, so known as a 45, 45, 90. And the sides are in a ratio of x, x, and x root 2. In this case, the x root 2 is equal to 10, because the bottom part is actually a square. Figure out on the scale, it looks like a rectangle, but it's actually a square, and all sides are equal in a square. So now that x root 2 is equal to 10, so x is going to be equal to 10 divided by root 2. your combined length will be, because you have two of them, it's going to be 2x, or 2 times 10 over root 2, which is equal to 20 over root 2. You can see that in choice D. It's not, has been simplified, but you can simplify it. Remember to rationalize the base, or the denominator. Multiply by root 2 over root 2, and you get 20 root 2 over 2, which is equal to 10 root 2. So that's just another way of rewriting this. But the answer is approximately 14.14. Choice D. All right, next for number 6, Kathleen's phone company charges 35 cents per minute of calling time during peak hours and 15 cents per minute of calling time during non-peak hours. If Kathleen's phone company charged her $7.90 for a 30-minute phone call, how many minutes of that call were used during peak hours? So it's 35 cents per minute during peak hours and 15 cents during non-peak hours. And during 30 minutes, it cost her $7.90. So here you know that at the peak hours, so we don't know how long it was, so we can call that A. So 0.35 times A plus 15 cents per minute during non-peak hours, we can call that B, is equal to $7.90. So that's the first equation. And the second equation is that A plus B has to be equal to 30. So here you have your system of equations, and you can solve by either doing substitution or elimination. Now here, the way this problem is set up, elimination is actually going to be easier because we don't have, any of the variables isolated. Now you might want to multiply by 100 so that you're just working with whole numbers. So just move all the decimals to the right. If you multiply both sides by 100, so you basically have 35A plus 15B is equal to 790. And you want to know how many minutes were used during peak hours. So you want A. If you want to solve for A, that means you want to eliminate B. And to eliminate the variable B, we have to make sure the coefficients are the same. So you'll have to actually multiply the second equation by 15 to match the coefficient for B. And remember to distribute. That'll give you 15A plus 15B. So equal to 30 times 15, or 450. And from here, if you subtract the two equations, 35A minus 15A is 20A. 15B minus 15B, they cancel. They got eliminated because we set it up that way. And you know that 20A is equal to 340. Then the last step is to divide by 20 is equal to 17. So we know that A is equal to 17 minutes. Choice D. Now we can always check our work. If A is equal to 17, B would have to be 13 because they have to add up to 30 minutes. And then you can do the check for 17 minutes. It's 35 cents. And that's going to be $5.95. And then you also have 13 minutes for non-peak hours. So that's going to be 13 times 15 cents an hour. So that's going to be $1.95. And if you add $5.95 plus $1.95, you get $7.90, which is exactly the total. So everything does check out. So here again, you have a system of equations, and you can solve that by doing substitution or elimination. We used elimination here because the original equations here and here, none of the variables were isolated, so substitution would be kind of annoying. When you eliminate, you want to make sure that the coefficients are the same. In this case, we made sure We multiply the equations by some factor to make sure that the coefficient of b was equal to 15, which allowed us to eliminate it once you subtract them. All right, next for number 7, the number above is formed by writing down in increasing order the consecutive even integers from 2 to 98 inclusive. What is the 40th digit in the number? So you just write out the numbers, the even numbers, and then you just connect them all together. So first up, 2, 4, 6, 8. Those are the only single digit ones. So the first 4 digits are 2, 4, 6, 8. So what you're really looking for is the 36th digit after the 8. And that's important because every single thing after that is in pairs. So the 38th digit, the 36th digit, if you do 36 divided by 2, that will be 18. So you'll want the 18th even number, or 2-digit even number. So here from the next pattern, you know that from 10 to 18, those 5 even numbers, that makes 10 digits with 1 in the tens. So then you'll have, again, you want the 36th one. So the 2s will have another 10 digits, and so will the 3s. So that's going to be 30 digits right there. Again, you want the 36th, so that's going to be it's going to have to be in the 40s. So this 4 in the 40s will be the 31st, then 32, 33, 34, 35, and the 36 will actually be choice D, A4. So the 36th digit after the 8 is the 40th digit overall. So you just look for a pattern here, and then you just break it up into smaller patterns. All right, and here is the summary for this page. All right, next for number 8, what is the range of f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 5x plus 3 if f of x is defined for -1 is less than x is less than 4 and x is an integer? So here the range is actually the set of all y values, or the outputs. And the input has to be between -1 and 4. So it really helps if you do a table of value. Unlike a linear equation that's always increasing or always decreasing, when you have a quadratic, it can either decrease and an increase, or it can increase and a decrease. So a table of values can actually help out a lot. So x can be -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you want to find 3x squared minus 5x plus 3. So if you start substituting in, everywhere you see x, replace it with -1. That's going to be, and again, due to order of operations, so -1 squared is 1. So this would be 3 plus 5, because -5 times -1 is positive 5. Plus 3, that will give you 11. You substitute in 0, that's 3. 0 squared minus 5 times 0 plus 3, that's just going to be equal to 3. And then for 1, that's 3 times 1 squared minus 5 times 1 plus 3, which is 3 minus 5 plus 3, which is 1. So notice that it's decreasing. Then you substitute in 2 times 2 plus 3, and then you're going to see that it's going to start to increase again, or potentially increase again. So that's 3 times 4. This is 4. That's going to be 12 minus 10 plus 3. That's going to be 5. And when we substitute in 3, it's 3 times 3 squared minus 5 times 3 plus 3. And this is 9, so 9 times 3 is 27, minus 15 plus 3. That's 12 plus 3, or 15. And last but not least, for 4, you'll have to do 4 squared minus 5 times 4 plus 3. It's going to be 16 times 3 or 48 minus 20 plus 3. So that's going to be 28 plus 3 or 31. So we see that the range, it starts from 1. It could actually be equal to 1 all the way up to 31 if x is equal to 4. Remember, x has to be an integer, but it actually can't be equal to 4 because x is less than 4. So technically the range should be up to 15. This would be the max, and the minimum would be 1. So really there's kind of a typo again. I mean, it goes from 1 to 31, but because you have the weak inequality here, the range would actually be f of x be less than or equal to 15, but greater than or equal to 1. That should be the actual answer, because 15 is the max when x is an integer, x is equal to 3. And when x is equal to 1, the minimum is equal to 1. You can't just substitute in the endpoints. All right, so this is an example of a graph that looks like this. So it's it's decreasing a little bit, and then it increases between this range. So you have to be careful and identify all the inputs here. All right, next we're number 9. If the area of the circle in the figure above is 36 and ABCD is a square, what's the area of triangle ACD? So the area of a circle is pi r squared, and that's equal to 36. So to solve for the radius r, you would have to divide by pi on both sides, and then you get 36 over pi, and you have to do the square root to get the radius. Radius will be the square root of 36 divided by the square root of pi, or square root, in this case, square root of 36 is just 6 over root pi. Now, ABCD is a square here, and if you look at the radius, the diagonal is made up of 2 radii, and we know the radius is 6 over root pi. And a square, as you know, if you cut a square diagonally, you make 2 45, 45, 90 right triangles. So we've been seeing these a lot. Then isosceles right triangle, and the sides are in a ratio of x root 2. So to solve for x, the hypotenuse here is 6 root pi plus 6 root pi, which is 12 over root pi. And 12 over root pi is equal to x root 2. And if you divide by root 2 on both sides, you would actually solve for x. Now we want to figure out the area of triangle ACD. So now we have each of these sides. It's 12 over root pi divided by root 2. And here you can actually rewrite this a little better by rationalizing the denominator. Or actually, since you're looking for just the area, it doesn't really matter. 12 over root pi divided by root 2. 12 over root pi divided by root 2. The reason why I say that is because you'll be multiplying anyway, and then these square roots will cancel. Remember, the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. You have to multiply these anyway, and then multiply by 1/2. So it's going to be 1/2. The base is 12 over root pi divided by root 2. The height is also 12 over root pi divided by root 2. So the denominator is going to be root 2 times root 2, which is just 2. And then the numerator is 12 times 12, or 144. And then the denominator of the numerator is just pi. So here, you can actually simplify this. 1/2 and this 2 in the denominator becomes 1/4 times 144 over pi, which is the numerator. You can also do keep change flip if you want, but 144 and 4 cancels to form 38 over, or sorry, not 38, 36 over pi. So the answer is choice E. So here we have to use, again, a 45, 45, 90 special right triangle to help us figure out the sides, and then just do 1/2 base times height. All right, next for number 10, 7 friends, 4 boys and 3 girls enter a subway car. They all decide to sit in a row of 7 seats on one side of the car. If no boys sit next to each other, how many different seating arrangements exist for the 7 friends? So you have 7 lines, and you want to make sure the boys don't sit next to each other. So when you have 4 different boys, so we have B1, B2, B3, and B4. So those will be the 4 people, the 4 boys, and they have to sit away from each other. It'll be boy, girl, it'll be alternating. And because you have 4 boys, if you look at the options, you have 4 for the first position, then 3, then 2, then 1. So again, here, this is the variation of the tree diagram, just a counting principle question. And then for the girls, because you have 3 girls, you'll have 3, 2, and 1, and you always want to multiply. So here, 3 times 3 is 9, and this is 4, so then you have 36 times 4, which is equal to 144. Choice C. So this is a counting principle question. That is the shortcut. All right, next for number 11, if 4 plus 5 times r plus s in parentheses is equal to 24, what's the value of r plus s? So here, you just need to solve for r plus s together. You actually can't solve for each one individually because you only have one equation for 2 variables. But we don't have to solve for them individually. All you have to do is subtract 4. You have 5 parentheses r plus s is equal to 20. And then if you divide by 5, you'll actually get to what you want, which is r plus s. You don't want to distribute here. So you get r plus s is equal to 4. If you distribute, you would have to just factor it out again. So that's not helpful. Right, next for number 12 in the figure above, x is equal to 110 and y is equal to 105. So what is the value of z? So here we have to use a lot of vertical angles or opposite angles. And now vertical angles are also known as opposite angles, and they're called that because they have to be equal. Vertical angles are congruent. So since they're congruent, we can actually fill out the 4 angles in this quadrilateral. So on the top, you have x. On the bottom left, you also have x. Then on the top right, you have y. So here, x is 110 and y is 105. So you can just replace that with 110 and 105. So you know that everything has to add up to 360 because it's a quadrilateral. So you know that your equation that you want to solve is 110 plus 110 plus 105 plus z is equal to 360. And if you add 110, 110, and 105, you get 325. So you subtract, well, they turn to 325 plus z is equal to 360. And if you subtract 325 from both sides, you'll get 35 is equal to z. So you know that z is equal to 35 degrees. All right, next for number 13. So you have if 9 is less than A is less than 14, and 11 is less than B is less than 13, and A and B are integers, what is one possible value of A plus B? So here, A can be 10, 11, 12, 13, and it can't be 14 because it's non-inclusive. B actually has to just be 12 because they have to be integers, which are whole numbers. And they're restricted by the boundaries of the inequality. So here, the possible value for A plus B, it could be 10 plus 12, 11 plus 12, 12 plus 12, or 13 plus 12. So these are your four possible choices. It's either 22, 23, 24, or 25. And that's it. So you just have to bubble in one of these numbers. All right, next for number 14, how many elements does the union of sets G and H contain? So here you have sets, and a set is just a list of numbers. And this list of numbers are denoted by these curly brackets and separated by commas. So each of these numbers are called elements, and a union means it's a combination set. So you just have to combine everything, but don't count the duplicates. So the union G, U, H is going to be everything in G and everything in H. And because they have nothing in common, they just have everything in there. And if you count this out, there are 9 numbers in here. So the answer is 9. There are 9 elements in the union. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next for number 15. K is an integer between 50 and 90, and it's a multiple of 4. When K is divided by 5, the remainder is 3, and when K is divided by 3, the remainder is 2. You want to figure out what's the value of K. Now, it's an integer between 50 and 90, and it's a multiple of 4, so into the 4 times table. Now, if you divide by 5, the remainder is 3. And you know that if you know the multiples of 5, they end in 0 or 5. But if it has a remainder of 3, you'll know that K ends in 3 or 8. You do 0 plus 3 and a 5 plus 3. So that gives you a hint as to what K could be. So because it has to be between 50 and 90, it could be 53, 58, 63, 68, 73, 78, 83, or 88. So the answer is one of these. Now, it has to be a multiple of 4. So it's in a 4 times table. 53, 63, 73, and 83 aren't. And neither is 58 or 78. So it's between 68 and 88 now. And now the last piece of info is that if you divide by 3, you get a remainder of 2. So if you try 68 divided by 3, 3 goes into 8 2 times, and 2 times 3 is 6. So you get a remainder of 2. So that tells you that the answer has to be 68. Now you want to double check with 88. If you do 88 divided by 3, whoops, that should be 9. You get a remainder of 1. So 29 remainder 1, which tells you that it's not the answer. So the answer has to be 68. All right, next for number 16, circular bicycle wheels A and B roll down a ramp without slipping. Wheel A has a circumference of 54, and wheel B has a circumference of 36. If over a certain distance, B makes 12 complete revolutions, how many complete revolutions does A make over the same distance? So a revolution goes around the circle once. So it's really a circumference. So if wheel B makes 12 complete revolutions, the distance that b goes is going to be its circumference, 36, times 12. Now we want to figure out the same for distance that a goes. Now the distance that a goes will be 54, its circumference, times x. Or we can call this r for number of revolutions. And these two have to be equal. So our equation is 36 times 12 is equal to 54 times r. Now I'm not going to multiply 36 and 12 because you can actually cross simplify here. If you divide both sides by 54, you can cross simplify. For example, 36 and 54 have a common factor of 9 in it. So if you divide by 9, you have 4 left over on the top. If you divide by 9, you have 6 left over on the bottom. And then 12 and 6 has a common factor of 6, so you have leftovers of 2 and 1. And now it becomes mental math. 4 times 2 is equal to r, which is equal to 8. So 8 times 54 is equal to 36 times 12. All right, next for number 17. If x cubed is equal to x to the fourth, what is one possible value of x? So here, in order to solve for this, you actually have to set equal to 0, just like all quadratics. And on a factor. So you would have to subtract x cubed from both sides. You would get x to the fourth minus x cubed is equal to 0. And now once you factor this, you can factor out x cubed, which will leave you with x minus 1 is equal to 0. So here you can use the 0 property. So either x cubed is equal to 0 or x minus 1 is equal to 0, because anything times 0 is equal to 0. Now if x cubed is equal to 0, x would be equal to 0, of course, because 0 cubed is equal to 0. And if x minus 1 is equal to 0, x would be equal to positive 1. So there are two answers, 0 or 1. You don't do both, you just bubble in one of them. All right, so for number 18, a certain cheese store, the price of a wedge of cheese is directly proportional to the volume of the wedge. For example, if the volume of a wedge of the cheese is 1/3 the volume of the whole cheese, then the price of the wedge is 1/3 of the price of the whole wheel. The price of the wedge shown above is $7. If the price of the whole wheel is $35 and S is the center of the wheel, what is the value of X? So the whole wheel, the total is 35 and the part is 7. So here, everything's proportional, which means you can make a fraction. So just part over whole. So the part is the wedge, which is $7. The total is $35. And 7 divided by 35 is 1/5. So that means that this should be 1/5 of the total. Now, X is actually a measurement of the angle, the central angle here. And we know that the total angle is a full circle, which is 360 degrees. And X needs to be 1/5 of that. So X is going to be 1/5 of the total. Again, just part of the whole. In this case, the whole is an angle now. So when we do 360 divided by 5, you should get 72. So X is equal to 72 degrees because it's 1/5 of the full circle, which is 360. All right, next for number 19. If 4 plus the square root of 3x minus 2 is equal to 9, then what's the value of x? So here, just gotta solve for x, use inverse operations. First, subtract 4 from both sides. You will get the square root of 3x minus 2 is equal to 5. And then the inverse of the square root is squaring. So the square root will cancel out, and you will get 3x minus 2 on the left is equal to 5 squared, or 25. Now, to solve for this, you would have to add 2 to both sides. Get that 3x is equal to 27. Then you want to divide by 3 and get that x is equal to 9. Now, you always want to double check here, because whenever you have square roots, you want to double check that you don't have any extraneous roots. which means that sometimes you might be unknowingly solving for an equation, and then that answer is actually not an actual answer, because when you have square roots, you can't do the square root of a negative number. So you always want to keep that in mind. When you square both sides, you could introduce extraneous roots. So here, substitute a 9 for x to see if it's actually equal or makes the equation true. So it'll be square root of 3 times 9 minus 2 is equal to 9. So you would have 4 plus, this is 27 minus 2, which is 4 plus the square root of 25, which is 4 plus 5, which is in fact equal to 9, so everything does check out. Sometimes when you solve for equation with square roots, you get a square root of a negative number, which means that there is actually no answer when you check, so please be careful here. All right, next for number 20, all of the students in a history class are juniors or seniors. There are twice as many girls as boys in the class, and there are 3 times as many senior girls as junior girls. If a student is selected at random, what's the probability that the student is a junior girl? So you have juniors and seniors. So this history class is split up into juniors and seniors. And now there are twice as many girls as boys in the class. So remember, this includes the junior girls and the senior girls, and the junior boys and the senior boys. So here, twice as many girls as boys means that the number of girls is greater than the number of boys. So you have to actually multiply the smaller number, boys, times 2 to be equal to the girls. Because there are twice as many girls as boys, which means if you double the number of boys, that'll be equal to girls. Now, there's 3 times as many senior girls as junior girls. So you have junior boys, junior girls, and you have senior boys and senior girls. So you have really 4 variables here. And here, the second part, 3 times as many senior girls as junior girls means the number of senior girls, SG, is greater than junior girls. So because it's 3 times greater, you have to multiply the junior girls by 3 to be equal to the senior girls. So you can just substitute everything here. Senior girls, SG, would be 3 times junior girls. Now, there's 3 times or 2 times as many boys as girls. So if you add the number of girls, junior girls plus senior girls, which is now JG plus 3 times JG, is going to be 4 JG. You can also just replace junior girls with X, but there's 4X or 4 JG girls. And now we can substitute this back in to figure out the number of boys. So 4 times junior girls is equal to 2 times the boys. And if you divide both sides by 2, you know that the number of boys, which is JB plus SB, which is equal to boys, is equal to 2 times JG. Because 4 divided by 2 is 2 times the junior girls is equal to the boys. So now you just have everything to figure out the total. The total is boys plus girls. So the number of boys is 2 times junior girls, plus the number of girls is JG plus 3 JG. So that's going to be 4 JG, which becomes 6 times JG, or 6X. And you want the probability that a student selected is a junior girl. So probability, remember, is part over whole. So that's going to be junior girls divided by the total, which is JG divided by 6 JG, which cancels out. It's like X divided by 6X. So the answer is going to be 1/6, or 0.166. Right, so the other way to do this question is just to pretend there are, some total number t, and then some good number t, and then just substituting in. Just make sure you satisfy the requirements: twice as many girls as boys, and 3 times as many senior girls as junior girls. You can also just call JG X, and then everything will be in terms of X. For example, this will be X, this will be 3X, and the total girls will be 4X, and total boys will be half of that, which is 2X. So this would be X over 6X, or 1 over 6. So that's another way to do this one. All right, and here is the summary for the last page. Thank you everyone for joining, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. All right, bye everyone.